Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel meeting for July 15th, 2022. This is going to be the first meeting of our 2022-2023 panel members, and we're very excited to be here with you. As a reminder, today is a remote meeting, so we will not be using the chat option. And we'd like to thank you for serving the children and the families of Kansas and our state's early childhood care and education professionals. I would ask that you clearly identify yourself, as I didn't just do. My name is Hannah McGahey, and I am the workforce coordinator with the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund, and I'm serving as a supportive role to our panel chair, Cornelia Stevens, who unfortunately is not going to be with us today. I would also ask that you could use the raise hand feature if you'd like to speak, and we can recognize you that way. So for today, we're going to go over the July agenda, and we're going to go through an approval process for that. And then we'll be approving the June meeting minutes that were sent out previous in the month. We'll be going over the Kansas Open Forum and checking for any public comments. And then our executive director, Melissa Rooker, will be providing an overview of the purpose and function of the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. And then I will be providing an overview of just some meeting procedures and some tools and resources to help you as you serve on the panel this year. We'll then go through any bright spots that you as members would like to raise for the larger group. And we'll remind you of some of the upcoming meetings, and then we'll be done. So we anticipate a pretty quick meeting today, just to kind of welcome all of our new members and get comfortable with the meeting procedures. Okay, so I am now looking for a motion to approve the July agenda.
This is Callie Hoffman. I so move.
Thank you, Callie. I'm now looking for a second.
Amy Meek, I'll second.
Thank you, Amy. The July agenda has now been approved. I'm now looking for a motion to approve the June minutes that were sent out.
This is Maritas. I move to approve the June minutes.
Thank you, Maritas. I'm now looking for a second.
This is Jennifer Porker. I second that.
Thank you, Jennifer. So our July agenda and our June minutes have been approved. As a reminder, the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel is under the Kansas Open Forum rules. And so because we're meeting virtually right now, all comments are instructed to be submitted in a written format, and you can do that by emailing myself, Hannah McGahey, by 5 p.m. It would be the day prior to share any verbal comments, and this is for viewers and just Kansans alike. So at this time, we do not have any open forum comments that I've received in the last 30 days. And now I would like to introduce our executive director, Melissa Rooker. She's going to give us an overview of the panel itself.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to Cornelia coming back to step into the role as chair, but do appreciate everybody who applied to serve on this panel, both those of you who are willing to continue in this role and welcoming new members to the Early Childhood Recommendations panel. My name is Melissa Rooker, and I serve as the executive director of the Kansas Children's Cabinet. Just a quick piece of history on the Children's Cabinet. We were created in 1999 to administer the work of the Children's Initiative Fund, which is a budget that is funded by the annual master tobacco settlement that the state of Kansas participates in. The annuity is received in the Kansas Endowment for Youth, and then an annual transfer is made pending. It's a part of the state budget process, so the legislature votes on the governor's recommendations for that transfer annually. The Children's Cabinet has a governing board that is 9 voting members and then 6 ex officio members who serve in advisory capacity. The voting members are 5 gubernatorial appointees and 4 legislative appointees. And there is in statute written in some guidelines for those appointments to ensure a politically balanced panel of board members. So we have had a long, proud history of focusing our efforts on early childhood in Kansas, and have very specific statutory duties, which I will relate to the work of the panel in just a few minutes. We have been serving as the state lead for preschool development grant renewal grant activities. That's a 3-year renewal of the original preschool development grant that the state received in 2019. For that 2019 year, the 1-year planning was coordinated among a team that brought together 4 state agencies. So at that time, the Department of Education served as the team lead for that work, and we the cabinet, the Kansas Department for Health and Environment, and the Kansas Department for Children and Families were aligned on that team as partners. We used that initial year. The purpose of the planning grant was to conduct a comprehensive statewide needs assessment, which we did, and that document lives can be found on our Children's Cabinet website under the All In for Kansas Kids drop-down menu on our homepage. The needs assessment then was used to inform the work to create a 5-year strategic plan for early childhood, also available on the Children's Cabinet website. We call it All In for Kansas Kids. And we have used the renewal grant to help implement the work of the strategic plan. In our needs assessment, we identified the 2 key findings. That is that too many Kansas children are growing up in households where their basic needs are not being met, and geography matters. And it's not just the stereotype of, oh, you live in a remote rural community versus the urban core. It is within a given community all across the state, we see that where families live affects their ability to connect to the services that do exist, and often affects what those services are. So those two findings have really been the overarching principles that we have organized our work around. The needs assessments laid out key areas of need, and the strategic plan was drafted to address those needs. So this panel exists as part of the work of improving state level coordination. We discovered, or validated what probably most of us understood anecdotally to be the case, that we needed to do better, that the state system had too many silos, too many conflicting requirements and regulations, and too many things that were not happening in alignment. So we have been really focused on addressing those things that are in our power to control, and to make plans and put things into action to improve that situation. We can go to the next slide. So the work of the recommendations panel came out of that deep dive into our system and the analysis that we did. What we identified is that federal legislation, the Improving Head Start Act, requires every state to have an early childhood advisory council. Kansas did not have a functioning advisory council. We had the federal statute directs the governor through executive order to create, to designate a lead for that work. And the last executive order, when we were taking a look at this in 2019, the last time we had a functioning panel was 2014, and then it just lapsed. The work of the advisory council was dormant. The executive order was still in place, but there was no activity happening. So we worked to be ready in early February of 2020 for an executive order. We worked with some national consultants and with statewide partners and came up with the game plan to designate the Children's Cabinet as the official state advisory council on early childhood care and education. But we understood that the political appointments that govern the work of the cabinet weren't aligned with the requirements laid out in federal law. So we, in the executive order, laid out the required duties for the Early Childhood Advisory Council that align with the federal requirements and named the specific roles that need to be represented in the membership of the advisory council. And the executive order directed the Children's Cabinet to set up an appropriate subcommittee populated with that team of subject matter experts to comply with federal law, to provide appropriate advice and guidance to the members of the Children's Cabinet, and to help the cabinet properly carry out its duties as the official state advisory council on early childhood care and education. So that is the work that you all have signed up to take care of on behalf of the Children's Cabinet. The Early Childhood Recommendations Panel exists as a true advisory advisory panel to the Children's Cabinet. So when there are recommendations that become ready to move on outside the work of this group of people, what you are doing is conveying those recommendations that your recommendations are being made to the Children's Cabinet, so the cabinet can consider adoption of those recommendations to share out officially with the appropriate audience for those recommendations. The work of the panel is definitely embedded in the work of the cabinet. We also have established through the work of preschool development grants a better aligned governance structure for early childhood in Kansas. We have a system that is spread across the multiple state agencies, and to strengthen and enhance the system we have. And we see other states creating offices of early childhood, or a new state agency devoted to early childhood. Kansas has basically been working to strengthen the system we have and create better coordination and alignment. So that really is the key to the work that this group is charged with carrying out, because we need to be able to help recognize and lift up the work that's happening in other forms of committees and task forces and councils and advisory groups. There's all kinds of existing standing groups of stakeholders and key people that exist with their own form of authority, derived either from different federal requirements from specific streams of funding, or state level statutory requirements, or just tradition and practice. So we are a connection point for all of that work. We don't have we don't direct the work of the other types of groups that inhabit our early childhood governance structure, but we do serve as a connection point. There is a lot of overlap in the membership of this committee, people who serve elsewhere on other important groups, whether it's the Child Care Systems Improvement Team, or the Family Advisory Council, or the State Interagency Coordinating Council, etc. I don't want to minimize the work of groups I haven't mentioned, but those are just some key examples. That is all important work. This is a place to bring it together, to report to us as the recommendations panel about topics and projects and questions and concerns and anything that might benefit from a view from the balcony, so to speak, at the systems level. We want that work coming to the panel, and in return, there may be times, you saw it in one of our recommendations, which was really helping support the idea that we think the SICC should be doing some coordination of effort with the local coordinating councils. And so the most recent recommendations address that. So it's a back and forth. We want this to be a two-way conversation. We want you to leave the meeting here and go back to the world of work that you do day to day, and keep the colleagues you work with back in those circles apprised of what's happening at the state system level. Hannah, have I covered the topics that you envisioned that I cover? Because I would be happy to spend some time opening it up for questions if people have any, or I could keep talking about history, but I'd rather turn this into a more casual conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's open it up. Does anybody have any questions about the work of the panel or anything that we just went over?
I'd be interested if anyone who, this is Melissa, if anyone who is a returning member has reflections on the experience of serving on the panel, I would be very interested in hearing thoughts. And as we embark on a new year and we have some folks in new roles, I think I'd be really interested in reflections.
This is Tanya Bullock. So I'm a returning panel member, and I think one of the biggest takeaways, especially for our new members, you really do get a lot of support, and there's a lot of networking if you truly do take that away. I spent a couple years on the panel, and all the returnees I see on here, I can personally say I've probably connected with, networked with, or somehow we've developed new partnerships in some way. And I know I can reach out to every single one of them when it comes to tackling issues in early childhood. So I think you really know that you can reach out to anybody on this group, and you can take action in some area, because we all have different levels of expertise, knowledge, and then other friends in our communities too and across the state. So
Emily.
Emily Barnes, and family child care provider in Olathe. Also a returning member, and I think I come at it from the perspective of the family child care provider, that quite often providers feel somewhat disenfranchised. And I know I've said it a few times, where a lot of times providers may feel that things are happening to them and not with them. And I would say at the beginning of this, I quite often felt some of that same sentiment, that I didn't always have an idea of what was happening, and there wasn't always clarity and everything on everything that was happening. And my experience on the panel in the last 2 years has shown me the level of commitment at all levels of the different agencies, that, the collaboration, and like Tanya was saying, collaborating, networking, everything, that we all know now who we can reach out to. And I was, last year, the first year was amazing, because it was like our wheels were beginning to turn. And last year was probably my favorite, simply because we saw real tangible results, that everybody, like all of the workforce is getting ready to benefit from. And so anybody coming on to the board or onto the panel, I would like to encourage you that, like, regardless of where you are in your perception of the systems, there really are people that are willing to come to the plate and not just ask hard questions, but participate in the deep conversation and work together and listen to each other. And for me, it's been a fabulous experience, and I'm excited to see what we have ahead of us for this year.
Emily, I appreciate those comments. I think the coming year is exciting as some of the work of PDG comes to fruition. This panel, I envision a key role in the process of mapping out the implementation, the rollout of the major new developments that are in progress, the workforce registry, a career pathway for childcare, the reinvigoration of links to quality as we bring it to state level rollout. I think there's really exciting opportunity ahead for the realm of early childcare writ large and childcare specifically, and this panel can help us with strategies. I liken it to my previous experience was as an elected state legislator, and in my last campaign, I know I personally knocked on 8,000 doors, and I still had people complaining they hadn't heard from me. So we know how to communicate, but we always need to work on improving communication strategies and approaches. So that I think we have some really important work ahead.
Amy?
Hi, this is Amy Gottschammer. So this is my starting my third year on the panel. And I would just say that my favorite thing about this panel is that we are so action oriented. We are structured, we are focused. And I know all of you have sat on boards and committees that you just month after month are just banging your heads against the wall and you never get anything done. And you just think, oh my God, I could be doing something else. And that is never the feeling you get on this panel. You always feel like you have a purpose and you are achieving something. We look at our goals, we meet our goals, and I just love it. I mean, year after year, we look at the strategic plan, and we look at, what are our objectives? What can we attempt? And we come up with a plan and we execute something. And it's just so satisfying in that way to just see something actually come to fruition. And it's just so, I love the action oriented focus of this. I mean, not that we have to do something. We don't just throw something out just for the sake of doing it, but we just move with a purpose. And I just love that about this panel. So I appreciate that.
Thanks for lifting that up, Amy. This is Melissa. I would say, as I reflect on the work product of the panel, this group stepped in and helped with the Kansas Beats the Virus campaign at the emergency stage of COVID in 2020, and did a beautiful job of creating some public service announcements in both English and Spanish. I was really, really impressed with the quality of that work. That first year, the panel created the Kindergarten Transitions Toolkit. And then the recommendations that were brought forward to the Children's Cabinet in its role as the advisory council this past year, I think will serve the system well overall. So that's really important. And our commitment has been from the beginning that this is not a place where we just flood the meeting agendas with informational presentations for no good reason. We are happy to schedule in informational briefings from outside groups or your various organizations. But if the key to that is that they have a purpose in the work we want the panel to do, that you need this informational briefing because there is a question we want panel input on. So this is not a place for just, the typical we're going to come, we're going to present this information. There's no action we're asking from you. That's when I think meetings begin to spin out of the sense that there's a purpose and into the why am I here listening to this kind of feeling, because there is always a purpose to what we bring to the panel. So, and that is a commitment that we take very seriously. We've never had we've never approached a monthly meeting and said, gee, we have no work. Maybe we give people back that Friday morning time slot and cancel the meeting. I feel strongly that if we ever have a moment like that, it's out of respect for everyone's time, we should do it. But we have found plenty of work to do, and I anticipate that continuing.
Crystal.
Good morning. I'm parked now, so feeling okay about sharing. This was my first year this past year, and definitely the value of being able to just bring back all of the work to our organization and just be able to provide more rich updates on what's going on with all the interagency departments, and more exposure to those specific committees that are doing the work. So that's been extremely valuable in my professional role, and just also very meaningful as a parent of 2 children under 5 or 5 and under. So that's been my personal experience. But I also wanted to share my program, which is based in Wyandotte County specific, but adjacent to Missouri. And we were meeting with a private funder of the work, and they noted just the successes and advantages of our partners and wanted to know more, about that. And we could have just stayed in our program and kept sharing, but really it had a lot to do with this panel and the work that is being done at the Kansas state level. I mean, Missouri just doesn't have anything like this. And unfortunately, their providers are really, really suffering. And, it just takes this type of coordination and bringing people together that really care about this work. So I just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you, Crystal. This is Melissa. I would just add really quick that, there's always going to be growing pains. The change is hard. And I feel like this panel is a nice feature of trying to minimize what that looks like when we are asking for a change of approach. Looking ahead, asking people to adapt to an online registry will have some growing pains. There's no doubt about it. So we sincerely want to make sure that we are doing our best. I know I can speak for our partner agencies in this. We are doing our level best to try and minimize the disruption and keep things as simple as we can, as clear as we can. And we know we come at it with our own perspectives and traditions. So this is a nice place for other perspectives to be brought to the table. So just know that we are constantly seeking to do better and be be the support system that everybody would benefit from.
Absolutely. Thank you all for that conversation. I'm going to roll forward, but before I get too far ahead, and I appreciate your grace in this, I realize that we did not actually vote on the, I was very proud of myself because I remembered the motion and the second, but we're going to use the raise hand feature if you all are comfortable with that. We need to vote real quick on approving the July agenda. And so if you agree with that, go ahead and put there we go. Let me scroll through. Thank you. Okay, and that's been approved and passed. And then we also need to vote on the draft minutes that were sent out from June. And we'll do that again with the hands, please. Okay, thank you all so much. I very much appreciate that. That has also passed. All right, so I'm just going to try and give you guys a brief overview of some of the meeting procedures that you'll be relying on as we participate in this recommendations panel for the next year. So we spoke about this briefly earlier, but the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel is subject to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. And so there's some parameters that we need to follow. One of those things is that we do not use the chat function, as I said. This is currently being streamed on our YouTube channel. And so that would be unfair to people who are just viewing it. And essentially, this is following an executive order that outlines our responsibilities and the way that we need to conduct ourselves since we are doing some governmental affairs, and the way that we need to represent those to the public. So if you have questions about that, there's some FAQs on the Kansas Attorney General's website, and it'll answer anything that you might have. But really, an overview is, and we haven't, as far as I've experienced in the panel meetings that I've witnessed, this has never been an issue, but each speaker is allowed to speak for 3 minutes. And so I think that we do a really great job of collaborating and just giving each other their turn. Again, we need to remember to clearly identify ourselves as we speak, first name, last name, for those people that might not be able to see our titles. And then if the speaker is providing a presentation and there's questions asked from the panel, the speaker will have up to 1 minute to respond. And the presiding officer is able to, of course, grant additional time depending on the context. Again, all information that's submitted to the panel should be submitted in written and electronic form, and it should be included in the meeting minutes, which we send out at the cessation of every meeting, and it's also posted on the Kansas Children Cabinet website. It's published there. And then, of course, we call out any underlying issues that need to be addressed at future meetings. And since we have been virtual really since the inception of this panel, and we plan on continuing virtually unless something changes, all of our comments are only accepted in written form, and we have the obligation to outline the procedures for providing that written feedback. Voting. I feel like I probably should have read this one more time, right, before we got started. All right, so obviously we try and strive for a consensus in decision making. We do absolutely need a 2/3 majority vote of present members. And I appreciate you all being so diligent and letting me know whether or not you're going to make it to the meeting. Continue to do that so that we can keep proper attendance. And then as we just conducted a vote, the votes of each panel member is included in all matters related to that vote. For making formal panel recommendations, which we've done a few, and many of you have been involved in the process. So we absolutely need to identify the entity that will be receiving the recommendations. So specifically, what entity is acquiring that recommendation from the panel. And then the information that we expect going into the recommendation is how has equity informed the recommendation? So if you're familiar with the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan, the needs assessment, all of the documents that we use to guide our work, the artifacts, documents, and investigations, we need to do everything from an equity lens. And so we would really like to see how equity has informed the recommendation to ensure that we are advocating for Kansas kids and families equally. And then also Kansas families. We want the representation from Kansas families. So please include that in any recommendation that we formalize. And then any existing councils, work groups, pieces of the existing governance structure that would be involved or could provide expertise related to the issue that we're raising. And we touched on this anecdotally. But one of the expectations of panel members is to be collaborative and to be intentional about supplying your colleagues with information about maybe something else that's going on in the system that is duplicative or resonates, and just to keep all of our colleagues up to date on similar opportunities that are taking place in the workforce or in the ecosystem. And so the panel at large, we have the ability to contact those other existing work groups and collaborate further. We can also request further information. So specifically as we move forward, if there's information that you would like me as support to try and track down from one of those existing work groups, we can absolutely do that so that we can inform our recommendations effectively. And then we're able to provide recommendations, information, and then requests for information or feedback from those other governance groups and existing structures at any point during the year. And finally, we do provide an annual report that summarizes all of our work to the full Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund panel, and that would be at the end of our year. So I'm going to open it up real quick now to anybody that has a bright spot to share. Oh, and Lisa, I see your hand is up, ma'am.
I need to brag on myself. I was awarded an AFCC, National Association for Family Child Care, held their conference in San Francisco last month, towards the end of June, and I was awarded their Ruby Brunson Community Advocate Award. So I just wanted to brag on myself for that.
I love that. This is Melissa. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Lisa, I believe your hand is up.
It was accidental. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. Kelly?
Hi, this is Kelly David of Child Care of Kansas, and I feel like we have a lot of bright spots going on, but maybe the most recent one that I'll highlight is just the ability to partner with several different state agencies and partners on the Child Care Workforce Appreciation Bonus project that is rolling out literally as we're meeting. So I think that has been just a great collaboration and an amazing way to show our collective appreciation to the childcare providers that continue to show up day in and day out and provide high quality care to kiddos and their families throughout the pandemic and throughout all of the other stressors in our daily lives. So pretty big bright spot if you ask me.
Kelly, this is Melissa. Can you share where more information can be found so that we can make sure to keep sharing that information?
Absolutely. Detailed information can be found on the Child Care Aware of Kansas website under the Grants Information tab, and I will go ahead and put that in our chat so everyone has access to that. But you'll find detailed information, frequently asked questions, a recorded webinar, pretty much anything you'd like to know about that.
Thank you, Kelly. And we were blessed enough to have Samantha give a presentation at our biweekly webinar on Wednesday, and it was fantastic. And just so grateful for her time and all of the work that you guys are doing. Tanya, go ahead, ma'am.
You know what? I think Brenda had her hand up before I did.
Okay, thanks, Tanya. So I'm Brenda Bandy, co-executive director of the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition and a new member of this panel. So thank you so much for having me. I did want to highlight that the Kansas Breastfeeding Friendly Child Care Provider Designation, which is administered by Child Care Aware of Kansas, has been featured in an international study that was just recently released, comparing this designation to, I believe, 11 other states' designations. And Kansas achieved 11 of the 10 of the 11 standards. We only missed one. And so it was great that Kansas was really highlighted, that designation. So Kelly, thank you for the partnership over the years with Child Care Aware. I just think that's a bright spot that our state level designation was recognized globally. And I'll send the link to that to Hannah.
Okay, Tanya, I think it is you now.
Thank you. I just want to share we're in phase 2 of some work we've been doing through a Communities in Action retreat we held in our community, where a community came together to tackle the lack of quality, affordable childcare. And in doing so, some community members and partnerships, we created a video where we allowed the voices of employers and people who are seeking employment, but between the two, we realized that employers are unable to retain employees because they don't have childcare, and people who are looking for employment would love to accept employment, but they don't have childcare. And so we brought the voices together and we finalized the video just a couple weeks ago, which we're really proud of. And we are finishing 4 pieces of kind of companion papers, documents that we're going to create. And one of the biggest ones is the child care tax credit that we're really going to help push across the state, that ties to this video. The video is not a standalone video. The CEO of the Workforce Alliance and I will be hitting the road across the state, and we will present the video, and then we will kind of share with employers, and that's who we're sharing the video with. So SHRMs, the actual Workforce Alliance conference, anybody who's an employer that we can get in front of and have them support their employees on creating family-friendly workplaces, anything they can do to support their employees and create more opportunities to hire and support childcare is what we're doing. So the video's done. We're just finishing the pieces to attach to it, and then we'll hit the road and see if we can support this, lack of quality, affordable childcare across the state. So we're super proud.
That's incredible, Tanya. Thank you for sharing. Eldana.
Okay, hi all. This is my first meeting as well, so I was listening for a while to see what was appropriate. I think the one thing that it's important for this panel to know is that Johnson County, Kansas, I work for Department of Health and Environment, and we just created a Public Health Leadership Council, and it's basically bringing together, we've got about 29 community members, including schools, hospitals, businesses, et cetera, across the county, together to work on improving the overall health of Johnson County. And since I am part of the department, I pushed to make sure that childcare was represented. So I was lucky. My recommendation was accepted. So Angie Carnes with CCPC is serving on the council. And the intent is to make sure that we always have childcare representative, including myself, but somebody outside the department as childcare representative working with that council.
That is so incredible. I'm so happy to hear that. Just to actually have Angie at the table and representing that wealth of knowledge and representing those family childcare providers from her lived experiences. It's fantastic. Logan, I believe you were next, sir.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Logan Stensing. I'm a policy coordinator with Thrive Allen County and also the Zero to Thrive Coalition. And so I'm also a new member, so thank you so much for having me. I really look forward to participating in the panel's work. And really the focus of the Zero to Thrive Kansas Child Care and Early Development Coalition is to advocate for policy that increases the availability of child care in rural communities, invest in the workforce, as well as providing much needed public supports for families. And one bright spot that I wanted to talk about was we had our first rural child success road trip event last weekend, where we went to Canton, Kansas, and had a listening session and talked with providers and some educators that attended. And then after the listening part, we had this focus on storytelling, where we were talking about the importance of building relationships with legislators as well as the community. And I felt like the energy in the room was so exciting because we often leave that maybe out of the conversation of the importance of building power and representation and building those relationships that help us move the field forward. So I'm really excited for other visits, and I would love to, if there's folks that are aware of other rural communities to visit, I would love to get connected because I just fed off the energy from that event. And I'm just excited to continue that moving forward in the next couple months with our other visits and try and help build that grassroots support for a lot of the policy investment and changes that could really support the field and aligns with the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan and all the great work that you all have built over the last several years. So that was the bright spot that I wanted to cover. So thank you all.
Thank you, Logan. And I, for one, am very excited about the energy that you bring and that I anticipate you will bring throughout this panel session. And Maritas, you are next, ma'am.
I have two things, two bright spots. The first one is I am really excited for this panel, and this panel has helped our program increase our visibility in the state. My name is Maritas. I am from the Kansas Deafblind Project of the Kansas State School for the Blind. We serve students birth to 21 with combined hearing and vision loss, which is the lowest of low disabilities. And in Kansas, we have about 150 children. In the entire country, we have about 10,000 of kids with combined hearing and vision loss. So that's the first one. The second one is I'm really excited with the networking and the connection that we are building with some partners at the panel. We have met with the Kansas Children's Service League for a possible partnership, as well as, you see, when you are in this panel, you build relationship with the current panels and the previous panels. So those are my key bright spots.
Thank you all so much for enlightening us to what's going on in your sphere and keeping us just encouraged as we go into this weekend and continue the work that we do. So some upcoming meetings that I'd like to highlight for you. We have our Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund meeting, which will be Friday, August 5th, and that's from 9 o'clock in the morning until 12 o'clock. And then we take a little bit of a break and we're going to have the Early Childhood Stakeholders Group in the afternoon. And that's same day, it'll be 1:30 to 3. And then our next Early Childhood Recommendations panel meeting, we're always the third Friday of the month. So that would be August 19th. From 9 o'clock to 11:30. And I will be reaching out to all of you with our regular meeting materials. And if you have any questions in the interim, and also if you do not have the materials that you need, so if you do not have a hard copy of the strategic plan, a hard copy of the needs assessment or the update to the needs assessment, please email me, Hannah McGahey, and I will get that sent out to you. So thank you all so much for your time, and we will see you next time.